Hello, I'm Scott Soshnick.
And I'm Eben Novy-Williams, and this is the... What are the two teams?
Is that an intentional? Is this you being? Is this being creative? No, we got to keep this then. It's Rangers and the D-backs.
Diamondbacks.
I'm like, really? I thought, wow. That is, I mean, in a weird way, that's actually perfect for what we were going to discuss, dude.
I literally was going, I'm not exaggerating here. I was like, I'm just going to go with the two teams skeptically. And then the first one that popped in my head was the Astros. And I was like, oh, it's not the Astros. It's the,
and then you froze.
Diamondbacks and
normally you
and the Rangers.
If people ask me about Eben Novy-Williams, I mean, one of the words I would use to describe would be poised. You generally have excellent poise. I
panicked there.
I
genuinely.
I had the bonus of being able to see your face. Then there was the wait a minute, is this? And I actually liked it. I'm like, oh look, he's being creative. And then for you to fess up, I like the honest nature of it all. That you really forgot the two teams that were playing is just perfect for what we were going to discuss, which is sort of the relative anonymity of these two clubs that were.
So we're not going back, is what you're saying.
No.
That is our open.
This is totally our open. And by the way, high praise, high grade from me. So
great.
If I was the guest, I'd ask myself. I'd say I really liked it. What we always say, you bring the enthusiasm. I think you suffer on the artistic impression. And even though this was faux artistic impression, I think it was high score. So
I do what I can, my friend.
Way to go. Yeah, so now tell me, who's playing in the World Series again? And
just like everybody, all pundits drew it up. We have the Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks meeting in the World Series. New blood in many different ways. Two teams that I would ask you, but I know the answer. I assume you can't name a single Diamondback.
I can name one.
Maybe
I can
Ranger?
name one Diamondback, and it's only my son. You know, the focus group of one. I don't know why he knows this guy or what he likes about him or something. But the Corbin Carroll.
Yeah, he's the young.
Yeah, he knows Corbin Carroll, and I always think if I hear Corbin, you know how my brain works. Like if I hear Corbin, I immediately go to Corbin Burnson. I go to L.A. Law, Arnie Becker. Then I go to Major League, and I go to Jabu. And I'll do this all day. Everybody listening right now, I would assume, is now thinking of some of the Major League lines that everybody talks about. So
100%.
Yeah. So anyway, that's why Corbin Carroll sticks in my brain because Corbin is good. Now even Texas Rangers, like I'm not. Who do
Scherzer?
I know Max Scherzer, right? I know that Steve Cohen is paying. We discussed that on a previous pod. I'm like, I know Ken Kendrick, owns the Diamondbacks, and
sure.
So that's a good one. What else do we need to know? I don't think it's on Fox. Do we have Fox World Series this year?
I believe it's Fox.
Okay, not how they drew it up, but as you and I discussed previously, it ain't so. Like obviously, the disaster is a 4-game sweep of two relatively. Not a ballyhooed teams, we should say. But if they can get 6 or 7 games, no matter who is playing, no, it's not Dodgers, Yankees, but if they get 6 or 7 games, things will be okay. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's the big thing, I think. Certainly, if you're Fox, if I'm looking at looking for the half full glass in this, I think one of my takeaways is. These are two teams that are not the top of the payroll in Major League Baseball. Heading into the season, Texas was ninth at $195 million. I'm looking for Arizona. They were 21st at $116 million. I think this is actually really good for the broader health of Major League Baseball. And I say that in that I think there was a risk of owners like Steve Cohen, what the Dodgers are doing, just spending so much more than everybody else that it really did eliminate the motivation to try to win a World Series for almost anyone who is not in that top tier of 5 or 6 teams. And we saw it a little bit recently with the San Diego Padres, who spent a lot of money and did not have a lot of success to show for it.
I can name some Padres.
There you go. You can name some Padres. If one of the results of this World Series is that a lot of owners who own teams that are going to spend in that 8 to 22 range feel like, you know what? Like, I can win a World Series. Maybe it's worth making that one extra thing. Maybe it's worth paying that extra free agent, whatever it is. If the idea here ends up being that more MLB teams think they can win a World Series in April, I think that is actually a really good thing for the sport. So maybe I'm being too rose-colored glasses with this, but I think I can make an argument for the fact that the Diamondbacks and the Rangers meeting in the World Series is maybe good for fans in Colorado and good for fans in Minnesota and good for fans in Seattle, in a lot of those places where I think maybe previously maybe those owners were thinking just making the playoffs would be great, but like I'm not going to spend to try to keep up with the Mets, the Yankees, or the Dodgers.
All right, so if Ray Davis was sitting next to you, could you identify him, the owner of the Rangers, the principal owner of the Rangers?
I could not.
Could not.
No, I just see him on the street?
Yes, you're passing by Ray Davis and say, hey, congratulations on your World Series, or you have no idea who this guy is.
Yeah, but that I think there's value in that because baseball has, in my opinion, gotten very close, and players are fighting this too, right? This idea that only a few clubs are spending, and everybody else seems to recognize that they are playing a losing game when it comes to trying to win a World Series, and as a result doesn't want to pay the price tag just to lose. And yeah, again, this is. We'll see. It's going to take years, I think, but I don't think there's necessarily a bad thing for a lot of teams if the number 21 and the number 9 payroll teams end up in the World Series.
I will say Evaldi's a good pitcher. Him, I know.
He's on the Rangers.
He's on the Rangers. He's pitching very well for the Rangers. Yeah. I just remember him like killing the Yankees all those years ago. Yeah. He's a good pitcher.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of talent on both these teams, even if it's not kind of man on the street generic star power.
So this was interesting, though. I said to you earlier, I am going to be in Phoenix during one of the games. Just so happens we have one of our events. You know, we do our C-suite event with NASCAR. It's going to be busy out in Phoenix. You've got NASCAR Championship weekend. Good thing I've got my hotel already, I think. I better do that right now. World Series now will be there at the same time. And I said, hey, should I go to the game? You said no. Explain yourself, Novy-Williams. You said, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be in Phoenix. I'm going to the Spurs Suns game, so I'm going to get Wemby on Thursday night.
Yeah. When
I'm there. I think Wednesday would be the game for baseball, and like you said, no. Explain yourself.
I'm not a big live event sports guy.
But it's the World Series, and I'm there.
Fair, yeah, you should go. I think given your outrage, you should definitely go.
No outrage.
I was kind of expecting you to be like, yeah, I don't really want to do that.
Could you imagine, for those who know one of our staffers, Barry Bloom, could you imagine him more in his, because he's a Phoenix resident, more in his element than in a World Series press box in his hometown? Oh my God! Talk about the mayor. Exactly. Talk about the mayor.
Yeah. It's a big moment here for Phoenix sports, and the Suns. It's an easy transition if you want to make it now, but kicked off the NBA season on Tuesday night, beating the Golden State Warriors. It's an exciting time. I think if you're an Arizona sports fan, at least professional sports.
Well, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to have representatives. The only ones we haven't heard back yet from the Cardinals, but we will have the CEO of the Fiesta Bowl. We'll have representatives of the Suns, the Coyotes, and D-backs. Joe Garagiola Jr., I believe, is going to represent the D-backs at our event. We're going to, and I mean, we put this together months ago, a conversation on Phoenix sports. So I just love the idea that now one team will be playing a starring role in this. So it's just great for the area.
And I joke that I'm not a live sports guy. I want to go to a Phoenix Coyotes game. I want to go to
at the Mullet. You want to see the 5,000 seat, right?
5,000 fans. I hear that it's very loud, and it's also just a totally unique and interesting way to see professional athletes that you usually see in 18, 19, 20,000 seats.
Well, you know, our friend Javier Gutierrez takes care of us whenever we're out there and whatever we need. But I got to tell you, for the size of the contingent that we have, this is where you're going to run into problems, though. Like, they just didn't really have a good space for us to utilize. We
for that many people.
Yeah, we were looking at bringing everybody just because of the experience. So what you just said, just to take a game into the Mullet and see what that experience would be like. But it just didn't really work out easily. So we pivoted, and the Suns are in town. And once we saw the Spurs were the visiting team, and everybody gets a peek at Wemby, that becomes an event. And I don't think I can say it. We have one as part of our programming for the Suns night. We're going to have a discussion with, Alex Weaver, NASCAR host, will have a discussion with a driver. Now, I was recently, yesterday, informed as to which driver, but I don't think we can put it out there yet. All I'll say is I'm excited.
Yeah. I know who the driver is also, and it'll be a fun
It'll be fun. I'm really looking forward to it. All right, but on to the NBA. You and I sitting in the office, and I'm assuming this happened around the world. unless you're a Lev Akabas, where you're a huge NBA fan. I'm a huge business of NBA fan. As you know, I do not go home and watch a lot of sports and have to see this game. That I don't buy into the notion of college football where it's the big game this week. I say, you understand this is a scheme, because next week there's the biggest game, and then the week after that there's the biggest game, and if you don't extricate yourself from that cycle, then you're stuck watching every weekend. And just tell me when the playoff comes, and then I'll peek, and I want to know about what's going on at Michigan and the alleged sign stealing. Yeah, these are things we want to know about, and check out the Sportico database to check out all the great financials of these schools. But I don't watch every game. So as the news was coming in near the expiration for when folks could sign extensions in the NBA, I believe it was the rookie deal extensions, like one by one, you and I are watching Twitter and Woj and Shams, and it's like, person X just signed for 3 years and $35 million. Person Y, 5 years, $75 million, 120, 30, 40 million. And I looked over at you and I said, Eben, is it just me? Because and this strikes me as so odd, because if you're a really good player in the NBA that deserves that kind of money, you were a star in college and I would have heard of you. And that's like the Carmelo Anthony thing. You go to the championship for 1 year and you're a ready-made product and a big name, and all the marketing's already been done for the NBA. But I'm looking at you and I say, I don't know any of these people. None. Yeah. Now, is that a byproduct of the system where you're making great revenue, so the cap is high, you got to spend a minimum number, so you got to use it somewhere? But damn, I just thought I would know more. I mean, it's still a star-driven league, but maybe the star-driven just puts you in a different stratosphere when we're seeing like Giannis Antetokounmpo's extension is for $60+ million a year. That's what the star gets, not the $15 million where it's the guy I don't know.
I feel like I have this experience every year with the NBA. That this time of year you get these guys signing, and people I've never heard of getting $120 million contracts or $130 million contracts. And there's a few things at play here. Obviously, business of the NBA is good. There's
about to get better,
which we're going to get into. There's a pretty small rosters, which really helps. Baseball teams are paying 30 guys. The NBA is paying 15 guys. So there's a concentration of money there as well.
Hold on. But in that equation, I would say, when you're talking about revenue from venue, you have much bigger venues for baseball, and you have double the number of games.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. And there's also no cap, right? So baseball salaries are huge. Maybe NHL is a better comparison, where there's 20-something guys on a roster, and the NBA is 15. And yeah, that number is going to go up. So we see this in other sports as well. NBA owners know it's going to go up. So they know that if you're signing someone to a 5-year, $126 million contract, which I think is what Jaden McDaniels just got, exactly. They know that the percentage of the cap that is now is probably going to be a smaller percentage in a couple years once the new TV deals kick in and the cap goes up. So I think owners are in some ways probably already spending money that they know cap-wise they're going to have more of in the future. So yeah, I think there's a few different things at play here, but I feel deja vu every year, Scott, when I see that the best player in the NHL is making $12 million a year, something like that, probably, and that is the seventh or eighth man on a medium NBA team at this point.
I was at a lunch yesterday, and I was sitting next to John Ledecky. I was going to make a Matt Barzal joke right there, because I love Matty. But did I see
other things?
Did I see, by the way, because we were talking about the NBA and the new media deal that's coming up, and the streaming component that they want to put together. At the in-season tournament, you have the new rules that you can't rest on national TV. I know you want to think about that, but did you happen to see, by the way, the Serie A contract TV deal?
I saw it.
Now, canary in a coal mine, does that scare the bejesus out of me or what?
It does to me if I'm an owner team, or I work in this world. Yeah, so Serie A, the Italian soccer league, their domestic TV rights, they just signed a new deal. It's with two partners, DAZN and someone else. It's worth less than the current deal. It is significantly less.
And by the way, the owners had been talking about closing the revenue gap in media between Serie A and EPL and Bundesliga.
It's exactly. Half of the domestic rights for the English Premier League. I put this out on Twitter, and some people were coming back about how saturated EPL is that Serie A is in Italy. And you can make an argument. I think that's true of U.S. leagues, some of them as well. Yeah, there's nothing more premier rights-wise in Italy than Serie A football, right? It is the thing. It is the American equivalent of like the NFL and the NBA rolled into one. The fact that something there domestically is getting a rights decrease, yeah, it really does worry me. And you and I talk about this a good amount, that there's premier products, NFL, NBA, gonna keep seeing revenue increase, at least for now, on the media side. But there's a whole bunch of assets in the middle tier or so. And yeah, in Italy, Serie A in Italy, and there's a it's not a perfect apples to apples comparison. I get it, but
no, but it's the thing.
That's the top.
It's
dog.
the thing.
That
yeah,
is
it's the thing.
That is the big thing. And if media companies in Europe feel like that is decreasing in value to them, that would be a little worrisome to me.
Absolutely. All right, so now tell me what you think we're looking at here with sort of the NBA rules changes. The prevailing narrative is that all the changes, particularly as it pertains to load management, and if people have not heard that term, that means if I buy a ticket to, let's say, the Barclays Center to see the Nets play, let's say, the LA Lakers, and the Lakers, in their wisdom, decide to rest the oldest player in the NBA because there's back-to-back with the Knicks and Philly or something, and they say, hey, you know what, LeBron, why don't you take this one off? Our analytics tell us we have the best chance to win this game without you. This is the one you should rest on and just sort of, put the ice on your knees and chill out. And the NBA clearly does not want that to happen anymore. They're making winning awards conditional on the number of games played. Now, I'm not sure if that's 1 minute counts or 30 seconds counts, but clearly the NBA is saying, and this goes way back to Stern, they don't like stars sitting in street clothes. They want people on the court playing, and I find it very interesting that at least the rules are now stating if you are going to rest somebody, please do it at home.
Yeah.
And I know you have strong feelings about this. On the road, you only get 1 or 2 chances to see the megastars. They want the teams to rest their stars at home, where season ticket holders, won't miss their one chance.
I find that part to be the most interesting. The two rules that are getting the most attention right now are no more than one player can be unavailable in the same game. So I assume that means that LeBron and Anthony Davis can't rest the same game. And then that star players have to be available for national TV games and this new in-season tournament. Those are getting the most attention. Our colleague Lev Akabas did a data dive into this idea, as he's so good at, found that there were only a handful of games last year where teams were out of compliance with either of those two rules. So those two things are not going to make a huge difference. What is going to make a huge difference is exactly what you said, Scott. The encouraging, asking teams to rest players at home instead of on the road. He looked at back-to-backs for players that played only one of those two games. And last year, 77% of the games that were skipped in a back-to-back were the away game. And it makes total sense, right?
You want to win in front of your home fans.
If I'm Matt Ishbia and I own the Suns, I want Kevin Durant playing every game at home because my fans are paying to see him. These are loyal Suns fans and they're loyal Durant fans. And I'm fine if he's skipping a couple games on the road. The NBA clearly, as a league, as a central office, is thinking about that differently. And I find that fascinating. I have said a couple times that it's, in my mind, it's kind of like a revenue sharing thing. And I'll get into the weeds here because I think some of our listeners might find it interesting. But
is this where I can lean on my head like this and just kind of wait for you to finish?
Most leagues in America, there is a percentage of home tickets that get shared in some sort of revenue sharing. So in the NFL, there's a portion of home gate that gets shared into the league-wide revenue sharing. In baseball and in hockey, a portion of Maple Leafs or Yankees ticket sales get put into the general distribution of revenue sharing.
Yankees love sharing their money, as Randy Levine told us.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone loves it. Basketball is the one major U.S. sport where that does not happen. 6% of all home gate goes into a pool. That goes to fund the NBA central office. It does not go from the Knicks to the Pelicans, for example. So I view this in some ways as a very minor, but not nothing form of revenue sharing in some ways, where you are essentially asking teams to make the stars on the road a hotter ticket, which is going to benefit teams like the Pelicans, the smaller teams that maybe don't have as many stars as teams like the Warriors do. And since those don't get shared otherwise, you're asking essentially to shift some value from Warriors home games to Warriors road games. So I think that's a really interesting one. I'm kind of shocked that it was explained that explicitly. That hey, we want you owners to value your team's road games a little bit more than you value your home games in some ways. But I think that's going to be a really, really interesting one to watch.
All right, two things. Again, you know how my brain works. I love this because we're going off on tangents here, but these are sports business discussions that we have in the office. And if we were sitting at the desk, this is what I would say. Did Lev look into, and I know the answer is no, but I'd be really interested, like we just broke it out of home and away, like which one they rested. I'd be curious to see the win percentage of the opponents on that night. Because I'm going to rest my stars when I think I can still win. Yeah, so, that's what I would think. I'm curious, is it not the guiding principle, not home or away, just whether or not we have a weaker team, and I think we can win that game. So
that's a great question, and at some point we should get an NBA owner on the podcast, and we should talk about this exact thing, because I think there's going to be
indictment. That should be easy enough for us. Who do we want to get? Who do we want on the show?
Exactly. Let's do it.
Let's get Ishbia, because you keep mentioning Ishbia. He's new. He's got ideas. He just paid a valuation of 4 just to get the team. Probably overpaid a little bit, and he knows that. So what?
Did you see, by the way, he was on Rex Chapman's podcast?
I did.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought what he said about overpaying, I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, he's like, well, this is my chance to get it. I wasn't going to lose out. You know who you should ask about losing out? Larry Ellison. I'll tell the story again. Yep. You go ask Larry Ellison if his biggest regret isn't raising his bid for the Golden State Warriors way back when by $40 million. He did not believe the sellers, or at least the bankers for the sellers, that there was a higher bid. I don't think anybody knew at the time it was Joe Lacob, but the bankers told him, you're short. Raise your bid, $50 million, and the team is yours. He said, I don't believe you. No, I'm not raising my bid. Okay, congratulations, Joe Lacob. Here's the Golden State Warriors. Go ask Larry Ellison right now if he regrets not raising his bid by that much when Ishbia went even higher than that.
And let's talk numbers. But what did the Warriors sell for at that point? A couple $100
million, whatever. I really don't remember.
Now the team's worth $6 billion.
Yeah, exactly. I really don't remember.
It's crazy how quick that has jumped up. Let's stay on the NBA for a few more things.
I wasn't done yet. I had tangents.
My fault.
I don't. When do I ever have one tangent? Never singular tangent from Soshnick. I have plural tangent. So another thing, like you just because you picked that team, you just happen to say Pelicans. And again, I wonder how you need to. This is where experience and institutional knowledge, like it's just imperative when you're talking about sports business because nothing happens in a vacuum. I wonder how many of our listeners remember that the NBA itself once took ownership of the New Orleans Pelicans. And we're talking about the altering of like David Stern literally put people. It's almost like receivership, guardian over the franchise. And do you remember what happened during that ownership tenure that sort of changed the course of a couple of teams' history and some star players? And do you remember
was that the Chris Paul?
That's Chris Paul. Okay. Yeah, he was going to be traded to the Lakers, and the league stepped in and said no, like you're not getting enough, and no. So
from a competitive balance,
in a fairness standpoint,
like a fantasy commissioner rejecting a trade.
So can you imagine just the quagmire of a league owning and operating a team, even in just sort of a temporary time, and a star player proposed trade to a rival, an in-city rival. League said no, rejected the trade, and then Chris Paul wound up with the Clippers. Yeah. So, you need to know. I wonder how many fans just don't know. It all is part of the bigger. How does it all fit together? You need to know those things to see why things are done. Why were they done then? Why is somebody annoyed? What happened between these two franchises? So anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up because you said Pelicans, and I thought it was important for people to, if they didn't know it, remember it, or at least be told the first time.
Let's stay in the NBA. You mentioned it very briefly at the beginning. This is the first year of the in-season tournament that the NBA is doing. I won't get into all of the details, but in the middle of the season,
good, because I don't know them.
All 30 teams into groups of 5 pods. You play within your group, and then you go out into a round-robin tournament. Not that dissimilar from what MLS did, introducing its mid-season tournament this year with the games between MLS and Liga MX teams in Mexico. Not a coincidence, Scott, that this thing is premiering as the NBA is out negotiating its media rights. Connect those dots for us in terms of value that this maybe brings when you are in the market trying to talk to both streamers and TV companies about how much they're willing to pay you for your next set of rights.
Sure. Well, let's just look at it from a very basic, it's like more bidders means more money.
Yeah.
More content, if you will. also means more money. Why sell just the 82-game season when you can create another package of games? That's what you're selling. You're giving a menu. Take A, take B. There's more to sell. It's sort of like what the NFL does when they offer to slice something up and offer it to a streamer, and you're just creating inventory. So more inventory will just lead to more money, will lead to the possibility of exclusivity. Value of anything exclusive is higher. And boy, have we seen any examples of any companies who like exclusivity for a sliver of a tier 1 sports package that maybe they're not ready to commit the billions of dollars to. I don't know if we've seen anything like that yet in sports, but perhaps the NBA is looking at there and saying, hey, look at that modeling. Maybe we should think about something like that.
Sure, sounds a lot like Amazon and Thursday Night Football.
Well, now that you mention it, I think Amazon does have and by the way, I believe I mentioned it on the last podcast, you've seen the numbers. And again, at that luncheon the other day, a whole bunch of sports business people, that was something that came up around the tables, that this I would say, this realization that streaming is no longer sort of this other platform. We're reaching a level where the scale is what you would expect from linear TV. That is a big development.
It very often feels like the NFL is deliberately waiting on a lot of trends to see what other leagues do to see if it works. It's an advantage. Not
only deliberately waiting, that's exactly it. And I was sitting, as a matter of fact, next to Renee Anderson at the lunch. And it's a deliberate strategy. They have 100%. The luxury, while some have to jump into the deep end of the cold water, the NBA has the luxury of getting into the pool with a toe. They can just say, it's a little chilly, but still we want to see what's going on in here.
And I bring that up because in this specific instance, the NFL was first, essentially. It was the first major U.S. league to say, we're going to give a significant exclusive chunk to a company that is not on television and see what happens. And it's an interesting reversal because every league was looking at Thursday Night Football.
Did Rob Shaw give MLB a little Facebook exclusive?
Yeah, there was a little bit. Facebook had a little. I think Yahoo had a little.
First
exclusive.
game, if memory serves, was Phillies Mets.
Yeah, but not certainly not. And that was like 4 or 5 games a year, right? Like this was a significant portion of the NFL's rights, and every league was looking at this very intently, saying, how small is this audience going to be? How much do we think the NFL is losing out on reach by doing this? And the more that Amazon's numbers come in and they're strong, I think just further accelerates the push or the comfortability that a lot of these leagues, NBA included,
comfortability,
have the
comfortability. Wow. Hold on, I'm marking that one down. Hold on.
Comfortability. Use a 7-letter word when you can use a 12-letter word, Scott. Yes, point stands. They're more comfortable, I think, doing deals with those companies now that it's clear that the Thursday Night Football viewership numbers are strong.
All right, we had so many things that we wanted to talk about, but we're kind of up time here. We don't like to go where people would be too out of breath on their treadmill run. So for me, that would be the 5-minute podcast. For you, that would be the 9-hour podcast. So we like to go somewhere in the middle. So I'll let you decide.
Yep.
Frozen Frenzy chat or Sphere Patch?
Let's do Sphere Patch.
That's what I would have chosen too. Just Just if people didn't see it. I loved your point when I told you that this was coming. I love where you said this is the most European soccer thing, and right away I was funny. Like Riyadh Air. It's keep it in the family. Pocket A to pocket B makes perfect sense.
Yeah, this is for folks who didn't follow. The New York Knicks, their new patch partner is the Sphere. The Knicks are obviously roll their way up to the Dolan family. The Sphere is part of Sphere Entertainment, formerly MSG Entertainment, which rolls its way up to the Dolan family. Essentially, and I'm sure they would hate this characterization, but you're kind of moving money from pocket 1 to pocket 2 in some ways, which does, as you joked, it sounds so much like teams that are owned by the Qataris and Paris Saint-Germain, which have Qatari Airlines on their on their
But it's
jersey.
one of the reasons why you buy the team. Yeah, I got no problem with this.
Synergies.
Yes.
No, I don't necessarily
scale.
have synergies with it either. We just haven't seen that much of it, right. I don't think, in U.S. sports, and in some ways jersey patches are a relatively new thing in America. Mohegan Sun did this with the WNBA team, the Connecticut team that they owned. So it's not unheard of by any means. But yeah, I was joking that it felt so much like what we're seeing more and more in European soccer. I am also curious, Scott, about the motivation here, right? The Sphere. For folks who don't know, multi-billion-dollar concert venue that just opened in Vegas. It is essentially every inch of it is an LED screen inside and out, which, as you can imagine, creates for some pretty cool visuals when you drive by it or when you're inside of it. I'm a little confused about what I think the Sphere actually gets out of being on an NBA patch, being on TV a lot during the months of September to June. I'm a little. I think a lot of times this is often like consumer facing products, and the Sphere seems like a very expensive and very elite hospitality experience. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that. I'm curious your thoughts.
Well, I need to see details of the agreement. Often the jersey patch is one piece of a larger integration, if I may use some jargon.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Chase at Madison Square Garden. It's not just sort of the outside. There's a whole business integration between Chase and God knows how many dollars in fees they get by having cash machines throughout MSG, and whether or not they have a larger corporate relationship. So I'm guessing there's way more integration than just the jersey patch. But I also don't want to be so insular as to think that brand awareness is because we know about it, everybody knows about it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I've been thinking about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a valuable property.
Media,
You're the Knicks.
I think,
yeah. You
if
may
you're
not know.
On social media, I think you might not. It fits very well for social media, but less so for people who are not, right? I think it's you may not even know it exists.
Yep, and something tells me that we're going to see a lot more Knicks, Rangers, MSG stuff on social media coming up. It's rapid fire, get it out. It's a very valuable consumption tool and a way to reach people, and I think you'll see a lot more investment going in that direction.
One thing that really bothers me, I feel like I'm you for a second here.
Ooh.
But everybody.
Hold on, something smart is coming.
I'm not sure if it's smart, but everybody is talking about there was I can't remember which publication it is, so I apologize. Published the ad rates for the Sphere.
Yeah.
It's $450,000 for some segment of a day, I think. I see this number tossed around all the time.
Yeah.
Nobody seems to talk about how much darn electricity it probably costs to keep that. I think people think about it like, oh, the Sphere is profiting $450,000 every 5 hours from whoever's paying to be on it. But I cannot imagine how much the electrical bill is for that. I think the people often get, and this is a business lesson, but often get hooked on revenue numbers and don't think about cost numbers.
No. I can actually answer your question, Eben. You're way off. You're way off.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim Dolan has the Knicks G League team on bicycles that provide 24/7 that generate enough electricity to power the Sphere. So, you're wrong. You're totally wrong.
Everyone gets on the spin bike.
Everybody's on the spin bike. There's
LEDs
cables coming
up.
out of it.
Yeah.
It plugs into something or other. And, it generates enough. The 12 bikes, Pelotons, generate enough electricity to power the Sphere. That's how it works.
So good.
Close it out, buddy.
That's a visual that will make me happy for a while. He is Scott Soshnick on Twitter at Soshnick. I am Eben Novy-Williams on Twitter at Novy_Williams. The Sporticast is produced by Erin Greenewald. Shout out to Erin. Sportico's digital media editor, a woman named Cora Veltman, would like you to know that you can follow the show at
You can
Sporticast.
comfortably follow the show.
You can have comfortability.
Follow
the show at Sporticast, which is the hub of the Sportico Media Network.